Gamers all around the world, today we're doing a castle civ tier list. We've done the feudal one, you can check out on my YouTube channel. And again, let me know if you like these kind of civ tier lists where they're split by age rather than, overall. But let's get started. What is this going to be based off? This is going to be based off of which civs are good in castle. So this doesn't mean which ones go fastest castle. This doesn't mean which ones are good at the end of castle. This is like if you're kind of prolonged castle age by both sides and you're fighting and you're clashing, and if you're strength tiering castle, that's what this civ tier list is about. This doesn't necessarily mean you will win 100% if your civ is S tier list. This just means your civ is the strongest at this point if it's at an S tier. And that's something you can use in your games. So with the strongest being mentioned, we're going to be starting with probably the best, maybe not the best, but definitely an S tier civ in Castle Age is Delhi. So I think I ranked Delhi in A tier for Feudal Age because they can fight, right? But their kind of goal is to get to Castle. And I mentioned this a couple of times, and the reason why they want to get to Castle is because of just their power spike that happens in Castle Age. That's just so freaking good. So there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one is, in Feudal, most civs can get the upgrades because they're cheap, and they can kind of clash it out, fight it out, no problem. Castle is where all the upgrades start to become very expensive, like the prices are quite a bit higher. So Delhi being able to get all the upgrades, because you already have all the buildings set up, you know, your mining camps, lumber camps, mill, monk upgrades, blacksmiths, unit upgrades, you have everything set up as far as infrastructure goes. And then you just queue up all the upgrades, and if you manage to survive, right, until your upgrades finish, you get a very big power spike. Another thing you can do with Delhi is you can rush a keep in Castle Age. And then you can upgrade the, I don't know what's it called, that makes your keep acts as a town center, so you can produce workers out of it. So it's basically like booming in castle in a way with Delhi. You can also pick up all the relics. You will have enough scholars to just pick up all the relics. You will most likely be retaining the map control once you hit castle, which is great from feudal into castle. And the biggest strength of Delhi in castle right now is the tower elephants. I think they're just called tower elephants, the range elephants. They combined with the herbal medicine scholars healing them are incredibly powerful. You get also men at arms. Your castle landmarks are pretty good in terms of what it kind of syncs up really nicely with how you want to play. So if you go for a landmark that gives more damage to men at arms and knights, you go for that kind of gameplay. If you want to go for a lot of keeps and then make them into kind of town centers, you can go for the other landmark, which makes a keep, I think, 600 stone cost, which is very cheap. And yeah, like elephants just kind of dominate pretty hard in that age, because the only real counter to the tower elephants are bombards and hand cannoneers or grenadiers. Other units don't deal too well for them. And that's why if you're stuck in prolonged castle, Delhi is very good civ. And most of the other civs are kind of trying to either rush Imperial to get to bombards, or they're trying to do some sneaky plays to avoid fighting elephants. Next civ we will be talking about is Mongol. Mongol is super good in Castle Age. It's one of the civs, you can see the similarities. A lot of the civs that I've rated A tier in the feudal are now S tier. Because I said, they can fight pretty well, similar to Delhi, but your really good power spike with Mongols these days is in that Castle Age. You get improved siege engineering, you can create mangonels, trebuchets, springles on the field, you get access to lancers, you finally get to spend all your stacked up stone, you can build towers everywhere, you can go for the springle tower upgrades, you can go for second TC, you can get the relics, you can deny relics. It kind of opens up Mongol as a civ quite a bit and makes Mongols what Mongols are supposed to be, which is this kind of nomadic cavalry running around harassing civ. and I think castle for Mongols opens that up quite a bit. So I think they're quite a good civ. I would say castle for Mongols is probably their best time, because all those things kind of align with how they want to be played, and you also have a very good chance of getting the relics. And even if you don't, you can deny the relics with towers. So it's all about keeping map control, and castle is where map control starts to matter quite a bit in terms of like starting to deny resources and stuff. It opens you up to like all in castle with siege, or maybe just harass, maybe go imperial. There's a lot of options. So yeah. Next civ I will be talking about is this is a hard one. Next civ I'll be talking about is Abbasid. I'm gonna put Abbasid in A tier. Abbasid used to be probably the strongest civ in Castle. This was about 2 months ago, when the siege construction was much faster and when Mongols were like, you know, OP. The power has dropped off a bit. Abbasid is in no way, shape, or form a weak civ. I think it's quite decent. There are some timings. I might be readjusting these at the end, by the way. You can still construct siege the moment you hit castle, but usually Abbasid don't get into castle at a good time where they're like super comfortable. So you're always kind of rebuilding, building up kind of thing. And I think while it's decent, it has its potential. It has not reached its full peak maybe. And also the like Mongol pushes are not that powerful anymore. It used to be like you got castle, like you put 40 on wood and you just go for mass Mongols. They might even be a B tier, to be honest. Also, regarding their landmarks, quote unquote, you go for Culture Wing, which reduces your upgrade cost, which is pretty nice. You know, you can pick up a lot of your upgrades, but it doesn't have that power spike that it used to be. So I'm gonna give it a B tier for now. This might change. We'll see how I do the other civs. The next civ that we will be talking about is English. D tier. Honestly, I don't think English is bad necessarily, but you know, if I gotta rank them up and I gotta use all 5 tiers, I think English is the worst castle civ by far. And the reason for that is very simple. They struggle quite a lot, and I've tried many different ways to play English. They just struggle quite a lot from... It just doesn't feel good. I don't know how to describe it, but if you go for like a longbow spearman in castle, your units are slow, you're locked into that unit comp, where the other enemies might be going cavalry or you know, more mobile units. You're kind of stuck with spearmen longbows, and then you're spending all your wood on longbows. Then you can't really boom up with farms. You need to wall off, but then you need a keep as well, and your army's slow. I feel like you give a lot of map control as English in Castle Age. The landmark for English in Castle are pretty bad. If you think about it, the one is a keep and the other one is a town center, and they're very expensive. Technically, you can go knights with English to counter what the other civs are doing, but then you're doing the same thing that the other civs are doing, except Mongols, for example, can do it better, or French. So I personally think English is, and always actually was, the worst civ in Castle. You know, Castle is usually some kind of power spike for all the civs, or landmarks give you that power spike. English is just, I feel like your civ gets weaker once you and your opponent get Castle. Obviously that changes in Imperial, but yeah. The next civ we will be talking about is French. Now, French, I'm not sure if it's S tier or A tier. I do think French is quite an insane civ in Castle still. They're very, very good. I might even give them S, to be honest. I'm trying to think. I will keep them A for now. I think they're quite good in Castle because of Arbitraires, which is the French crossbows. They're so powerful. The French knights are obviously so powerful. They get the guild hall, or the other landmark, which I forgot what the name is, which is becoming more and more popular because it gives 35% health to your knights. So if you go to that landmark with French and you upgrade that upgrade, get that upgrade, you can actually force your opponent to fight in castle, and your knights are just so much fucking stronger than anything they can do, especially if you play French against English, right? If English goes for knights and your knights have 35% extra health, they're not going to win, right? They're going to lose 100%. So I think that they are quite strong. They still are kind of played the same way. They're very aggressive. You're supposed to harass. But I think the issue maybe becomes why they're not S tier is in castle is because a lot of the civs are at that point walled off, and they're kind of, the game maybe goes a little bit more passive. So if you manage to put enough pressure where your opponent is still super open and stuff, French is still good. But if the map starts getting closed off, the French knights are kind of less valuable. So I would give them an A tier. Maybe S, we'll see by the end how I decide to go about it, but very, very strong civ in castle, should not be underestimated. The one downside of French in castle is their siege capacity sucks, because if you play against Mongols or Delhi, you will be out-sieged. If you play against English, their siege will have attack speed buff. If you play against China, they will have better siege. So French is all about just units, and depending on the map, like I said, if the map gets walled off, it gets a little bit smaller, more chokier. French is not that good all of a sudden, but obviously still a great civ. So I want to discuss the other civs. I just want to make sure I know exactly where I rated them in feudal, because I feel like there should be either an improvement or downgrade, or perhaps, stays the same. That depends. I'm trying to load my video. Okay. Let me see. HRE. Now, HRE was D in feudal for obvious reasons. They do struggle there quite a bit, and it's a civ you don't want to play in feudal. Now, for castle, that changes a little bit. They get a very big power spike with either Regnitz Cathedral or a Burger Palace, as I like to call it. Now, is it really good and it suddenly starts dominating? No, but it kind of opens up HRE for more and for greater things. Now, with that in mind, I will have to put HRE in B tier. I might move up Abbasid, I'm not sure yet, but HRE definitely gets a big spike. Like I said, you get that Regnitz if you manage to pick up relics. Your economy starts booming, but HRE, just like it was in feudal, you want to go to castle. Once you're castle, you want to go to imperial. So you kind of want to keep teching up, and you only want to stay in feudal with HRE just until you can get your opponent off your back, so you can go to castle, so you can go to imperial, and that's where the real juice is at with HRE, and that's what it really pops off and is really good in my opinion. Now, the last two civs, Ruse and Chinese. Ruse, last time we talked about this, I think I put them in A tier. I put them in A tier. And then I put China in C tier. So China becomes quite a bit better, actually. If, this is an assumption, right? Assuming you go China 2TC into Song Dynasty and then you're booming and you go into Castle, I think China becomes quite a good civ, and it opens up China so much in terms of what you can do and how much you can do and stuff like that. And from then on out, I think it just looks better and better for you. I think China is still very underestimated, in my opinion. Their landmarks, their Castle landmark is great. Their feudal landmarks are, I think, also pretty good. And China goes from this civ that kind of wants to get away from feudal into castle as fast as you can. You're steering, you're gonna die. I feel like when I play Chinese, the moment I hit castle, I feel way safer. I feel a lot safer in terms of, suddenly I have a nest of bees that kind of shreks everything. And you get into a situation where if opponent all-ins you, you get one or two nest of bees out and you can pop them like this. But there's another thing where if they decide to go for their siege, then suddenly they're playing your game. and they're delaying the game, they're extending the game, and you can also make siege already, right? So I feel like China, once it reaches castle, assuming you're not behind or whatever, I think it's quite decent. You can play prolonged castle with Chinese without any issues. You can trade, you can fight the opponents. You know, China is also very good against Delhi, for example, because Nest of Bees destroy scholars, and scholars are what keeps the tower elephants really, really good. So, in my opinion, China Castle Age is going to be A tier. Obviously, these two civs are very different from one another because, you know, one is supposed to be super aggressive and one gets a lot of, you know, very strong units in Palace Guard and Nest of Bees. And China becomes much better defensively because of Nest of Bees. Their keeps are very good. They're the best keeps in the game because they have they don't shoot arrows, they shoot like cannons. And not only that, but if you play against more defensive civ, you can actually go Palace Guards, which are basically weaker but faster men-at-arms, and you can harass your opponent, do a lot of damage. And in Castle, I feel like is where your economy really pops off. You start getting like batshit insane amount of workers. You start getting the farms, and I would say it's just a pretty good civ. But like I said, getting there is the bigger issue rather than staying in Castle. And obviously, as the game goes, it's better and better for you. And the last civ that I will be talking about is Ruse. Where do I put Ruse? Ruse has changed a lot over the years. A lot. And Ruse right now is played very aggressive, that I talked about in the previous video with the feudal aggression. And the thing about Ruse and feudal aggression is, if you play like that and you go into castle, the game is very awkward. You don't have the greatest economy. You usually dealt the damage to your opponent. Horse archers are decent, but they are nerfed, right? They're not what they used to be. This is a hard one for me, to be honest. I have no idea where to put Ruse. I don't think they're as bad as English. I think I can remove this 1 tier, by the way. I don't need 5 tiers. I don't think they're as bad as English. They're definitely not S tier. I'll tell you that. Are they as good? Do I feel comfortable enough to put them where French and... No, I don't. I think they're just B tier together with these two. Abbasid, I feel like it depends on the player. Maybe it is A tier, but I think it's safer to put them in a B tier. I'm trying to double take this to make sure I agree with my choices. And I think I do. Now, this is going to be a little bit... I don't know exactly how to explain this, but I'm looking at HRE and I put it in B tier, and that feels wrong because HRE feels very good in Castle. Like, it feels like it's like reborn, but these 3 civs, for example, can keep you from taking the relics, and they can lock you down pretty fast or just be super aggressive against you still, which is why HRE is still not played on the most open maps. It's because of these 3 civs, and because they bully it quite hard to the point where, you know, it's hard to, like, yeah, you have the cathedral and you're popping off, but it's hard to actually get any map control, and you're forced into early farms and stuff. But I think HRE versus China has a lot of potential to do well. I think HRE versus Rus is also okay for HRE. HRE versus Abbasid is really good. HRE versus English in Castle is also good for HRE, but that's more because English sucks. So while I do think that HRE has better matchups and does a lot better, I just don't think it's necessarily like, yeah, dude, HRE Castle, let's go. I still feel like these 4 civs are kind of... you know, dominating in that age pretty hard, and that's where your strengths are, which is why you see a lot of Mongol players, a lot of Delhi players, a lot of French players commit super hard into Castle, and they actually rarely want to go up to Imperial. China is very good in Castle, but they don't necessarily want to stay there. They got better things to do in Imperial. Then you have HRE, Rus, and Abbasid that would rather be in Imperial than Castle, in my opinion, and obviously English is just... you know, in Castle, so they definitely want to go anywhere. They would rather go Dark Age than say Castle. But yeah, I think that's my Civ tier list for Castle. The Imperial one will obviously be a little different. I'm going to show you guys, if you are not aware, if you didn't watch, this was the Feudal tier list, putting English pretty high because of the aggression, because of fighting, prolonged fighting. Atri was at the bottom. Abbasid kind of stayed the same, and that's how I feel about Abbasid. For me, it's kind of neutral. China went up. Mongol went up from the feudal tier list. Delhi went up, and Rus went down a notch. So, yeah, once again, this is the end tier list. Potentially, you could move Abbasid to A tier, by the way, if you want to do some kind of timings or whatever, but I think personally that Abbasid is incredibly strong in Imperial, and that's kind of their focus goal. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that, like I said, I want to re-emphasize this because I always get questions like, oh, but so this Civ is trash. No, it just means that that's not their strongest point, and that there are other Civs that do a better job in that age, right? That doesn't mean that HRE can't, beat Delhi, but it just means that if you play HRE versus Delhi, maybe you want to go to Imperial and kind of balance the power, if that makes sense. Anyway, once again, guys, let me know what you thought about this kind of Civ tier list. Like I said, I did the Feudal one, this is the Castle one, and we're going to do the Imperial Civ tier list as well. And let me tell you, one of these S tier Civs will be going down to the bottom because it sucks. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks so much for watching. If you're watching this on Twitch, let's keep going.